So, hi everybody. Welcome to the Philosophical Yogi. This is a very special moment for me. I met Radhika on Clubhouse, which is an audio app for those of you who don't know. And I am sure, her resonant voice and her presence ripples through people's lives and experiences when they're dealing with all kinds of imaginings, from ups and downs, even to the mundane. And I'm saying that as a householder. And for someone with such far reaching resonance through the voice and the power of mantra, I'm not sure if we can ever qualify or quantify where those ripples go, but I know that they are going way into the future, into people's children and relationships and interpersonal relationships. So for that, I thank you. There's another reason why I am super pleased and delighted that you are here is your musical lineage, and how you have carried that forwards as a woman, is it's something that makes a lot of people proud. You know, I've read your history and what you've done with what you were given from your grandmothers on your paternal and your maternal side, and I think you're an exemplar of carrying not just the Vedas as a story, as a theory, as a concept, but as a real working material within the world. So that is another reason why I'm really delighted that you are here. So what I really liked about something that you said is that you are inner and outer world. Well, you don't say you are, right? And I should imagine, I don't want to get too conceptualizing philosophical about this, but
it's the name of this. Yeah.
Like let's just take it as it is, okay? And what I would like this conversation to maybe start with is, because you do mantra, and I would like you to maybe express there is the inner and the outer world, and then there is the bit in between, right? Would you mind starting about your perception and how you could, if possible, describe how you resonate and use your body in this life experience as the bridge between the inner and the outer?
Oh, wow. I have never been asked anything like that before, ever. That's quite amazing. First of all, let me say that it's such a pleasure to talk to you. Such a pleasure. So thank you for that very beautiful introduction. Wow. How I use my body. You know, ever since I was very little, I've always been enamored with what's beyond this, what's beyond my hand. Always. I think some of us are just innately born into that state, whether it's karma. It's probably karma, because that's what I believe in. Some of us come into this world given this state where we're never going to be fully in and we're never going to be fully out. And so ever since I was very little, it's funny, my family found a video recently of me as a baby, very little, and I was just staring at things that weren't there. And I think upon my life so far, and I've always been the kind of person that doesn't just take what's here. I don't just take what's here. I don't just take what's on the skin. I don't just take what's on a phone. I don't just, because there is a vastness behind all of it. And there's my social, I just want to know. I just want to know. And even when I've had glimpses of that answer, it's still not enough, because as you say, there's something in between. I think it's easy to, people think it's hard to get to an experience. They feel that it's foreign or exciting to see, when you meditate or you have an experience and you see it, but they forget about the space between. And they forget that that space between is actually always available to us. It's always available to us. So I guess I've had a non-attachment to my physical self all my life. I guess from when we're very young, if you grow up in an Indian culture and you're around rituals and traditions that are from the Vedas, and, these principles from the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna talking and saying that, you are not just this material body. I have witnessed dead bodies since I was very little. It's part of our culture.
Yeah.
So we're under no denial. There's no denial that things end. There's no denial. And there's just this presentation very, very early on from when I was young, and I'm sure many, many Indian people when they're young, is that there is an end, but there's an end of the material, but there's really no end. But I've always been curious about this. There's life and there's death, but what is there in between? There's everything in between. So I guess understanding that there's a finite nature to the body and there's an everlasting presence to the soul. But what is that space between that? What's the connection between the two? Well, that's life. That's what's happening. And that's life. And it can either be Mayic, or you can actually be aware of it and not be caught up. Because the space between is a very confusing place to be. It's a very confusing place to be. So when you're aware of things like illusion, and when you understand not to be caught in your emotions and not to be caught in, the triggers of this, well, not this, I mean, the mind is everywhere, right? Not to be caught in something like that, you can begin to let go of attachment, and you can begin to be at peace in this space in between. And I think that's a hard place to get to for most people, right? It's a tough place to get to for most people, because I've been fortunate in my life that from very early on, and relatively early in this incarnation, I am committed to not being led by illusion, not being trapped by material. I mean, we have human concerns. We have to live and we have to pay bills, and we're in a construct. But as was said in the Gita, be in this world, but not of the world. And so I think I've always been in and out. I've always, I guess, in and out, but really I've been in between.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I felt like I was in and out, and it was a struggle. I've been meeting people in the last few years, especially in the last 5 years. It's very interesting. The more people I meet who say, I feel like an alien. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't understand. But actually, what an incredible place to be. What an amazing place to be, to feel like that and have had that struggle, and then finally begin to settle and go, it's a gift to be in this place, actually. It's a gift. I've met many people, and I feel like it's a gift to be around them. And so there's been a settling, especially in the last few years, that actually I feel very in between. And I think that's what people feel in the music as well, that it becomes a bridge. The between is a bridge. That's really what it is. But a bridge needs to be fortified. A bridge still needs to be strengthened. It needs to be maintained. It needs to be in a good condition. And yet it's still carrying a lot of traffic. The bridge is
Yeah.
carrying a lot of traffic. And I've carried a lot of traffic during the pandemic. Quite a bit of traffic, much like many healers in the world, or many bridges that are here. But I guess that's a little synopsis of, from when I was little, how I felt, and how I've gotten to a point in my life where it's been tough to settle on that. But what helps me is the music. That's actually what really helps me to be in that in between. Because in that in between, when I'm serving through mantra and music, I'm actually free. It's a place of utter and complete freedom.
And you can, I think that is what leaves many or renders many people speechless when they are in those environments where you do your mantra, when they're in those spaces, is as they feel that release happening. And I always think it's beautiful when you have that moment where people are rendered silence, that they can actually, for some reason, I really don't feel that I want to kind of put this into words and take that moment away from myself. And what was really interesting was when you said, I can relate to what you were saying about people during the pandemic and people in general on this journey of discovery who feel like they are not in the world or feel like they can't reconnect. And even as you were describing it, when you said, and isn't that, a wonderful place to be? It opened up, didn't it? All of a sudden, it was like in that acceptance of, okay, you're feeling like that. Isn't that a wonderful place to be? You can feel the shanty just coming. If we construct that it has to feel a particular way, but what if what you're experiencing is, as you say, what you're meant to be doing here? Having that experience of feeling like you're not here is the experience of being here.
Well, you wouldn't be experiencing it if you weren't meant to experience it. And you
Yeah.
wouldn't be experiencing anything were it not for your soul's evolution. Once we understand that everything is happening for that exact reason, then there is an acceptance. It's our resistance to it that causes so much suffering. But if we can get out of our mind's way and the barriers that we self-impose, not only we talk so much about what society imposes on us, but it's our responsibility not to fully adopt that.
Yeah.
And so we really do it to ourselves, and we trap ourselves into these states of, it must be like this, it must feel like this, it must look like this. It could just be that I'm the kind of person who, I really feel that when there is a bit of, not friction, but there's constant transformation happening.
Yeah.
And I think just karmically, I'm the kind of person that, gets enlivened when that's going on. I feel alive in the transformation. I don't feel alive when everything is just, whatever. And I've learned that that's a good thing, because we must accept the way that God, creation, determines is best for our soul to grow. We must accept that, whether you want to call it life, universe, if you believe in a particular God or being, that humility and surrender is extremely empowering. We don't talk about these things in that way. We think that humility and surrender are, just, I just have to let go. It's a very inactive thing. People think that these two things are very inactive, passive, but actually they are phenomenally empowering, phenomenally, even more so than things that we traditionally see as active. So yeah, that's acceptance is the most rewarding because it is one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be worth it if it wasn't hard.
Yeah, I really connect with that. And I think that there are certain ways of doing things in the commodified world where the destination has more importance than where you are, in especially maybe in some if we look at some of the way that coaching happens, and it's like, well, we're going to get you to here, it always kind of makes me just like have one of those moments where I feel like there's so much possibility in the not getting to where everything's okay again, where again you're in that space in between where it's like, well, I rather than looking for answers, maybe just really delving into what levels and lessons and icky, sticky stuff needs to be done. And because you do mantra healing and also you're doing these peace mantras, I think that it is the consistency that is within the things like the mantra and people who are vessels for that, that allow others to really go into that state of acceptance, that may require a lot of weeping and a lot of really reconsidering what karmas you have, but also your actions and your autonomy. And if you're working with people like yourselves, maybe the Sufi tradition, where it's like, well, no, we're not going to jump to the part where everything is fine. We're going to stay here. And it's going to get uncomfortable. And you think it's uncomfortable now. And I guess I want to, we can talk about it from a philosophy standpoint, but if you want to touch on experience, this healing power of the mantra and how it holds people in space and time. As the person bringing that to others, how would you describe what you're witnessing?
That's a good question. Before I start the sessions, I can feel what people are going to bring in. It's interesting. I get sensations. Sometimes I get aches. I get aches in my body, which is interesting. Very soon before. And during the online experiences, I'm actually doing a lot during it. I'm not just singing. I have to handle a lot of managing of the technicals, but the piano that I play when I do these things, say with piano, it's improvised. It's completely improvised. So it's never exactly the same, ever. I have an idea of the mantras that I'm going to do because of the astrological movements and the energies at the time, and what I generally want to touch on in terms of offering people. But how I put it together is completely instantaneous. It's spontaneous. And so I would like to say that I know exactly how that happens and what's going on. But oftentimes it comes through and I don't even remember what I've done. The only reason I remember now is because it's recorded. But I couldn't tell you exactly how I decided to form a sound in order to support a particular mantra. But it's always from a space of, please allow me to give the highest and what is going to serve the most needed in this moment. That's what it is. It's not about providing an experience, because an experience, you have it and then you go on. It's about a transmission, an integration, and transformation. That's the incredible power of mantra. I've had people send me and tell me even things that I could not have even fathomed happening during those experiences. And there's not one part of me that thinks that it's me, that believes that it's me. There is mantra is a gift from nature. It's a gift from God. It's the language of God. Sanskrit is a language of God. And I hold it in such reverence, with such respect, that I do my best to get out of the way. The I to get out of the way. Yeah. And so during those experiences, my intention is simply to really allow whatever it is that needs to come through. But what's incredible is that, I have people say, you do this for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I used to do them for 2.5 hours. Yeah. Just on my own. And at the end, I would feel incredibly energized. I wouldn't be able to sleep. So it is doing something to me as well. By default, it is doing something to me at the same time. It's also my healing too. Yeah. Because when we serve others, we also heal. I just thought about that. I never actually thought about that. And so it's transformative for everybody, including myself. I'm not going to say, well, I'm here and I'm just giving and nothing. It's a transformation, because each time we utter these things, it has a profound, deep effect. Your skin looks better the next day. It's enlivening everything. So that's a tip. Do mantras to stay looking young. Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to go to a dermatologist. Just chant some mantras, you'll be fine.
No, that's true. What I really, I believe you. I believe you when you say that you've just noticed that, and I think that you probably knew it, but you've just heard the own words come out of your mouth. And I know that you don't, I know exactly how that you mean that in all humility, and that we are a resonant feedback loop. And as you're, and you can feel that as you're giving, there is this wave, this motion, of kind of this spiral, as it were, of this giving and receiving. And as it's moved, the prana is moving through people, and um, I felt that. I can feel that. I think that as one does it, that it is going to increase, but that isn't about energy, as it were, and how many rest days you need. This is just like something different. This is just the energy of the essence moving through and building up. And yeah, I can imagine why you would feel so radiant the next day, and I'm sure a lot of other people are as well.
Well,
I'm
it's
curious.
also love though
Well,
as well. It's also love. Like
yeah,
I love to play and I
yeah,
love to sing. You know,
mm,
I sang before I could speak as a baby. So I love doing it. And as I said, it's this place of freedom
yeah,
in that place. You know, there's a lot to grapple with when you're doing things of this nature because you want to be sincere, you want to be devoted, you want to make sure that all of these things like putting it up on social media, you don't fall into the whole, you know, how many people are coming or how did it sound and all these very human things.
yeah,
And so when I when I'm doing it, it's coming from a place of love, and that
mm,
love gives it freedom and it gives it space. And I
mm,
think that's a lot of what people feel is they feel like they finally have the space to just exhale.
mm,
It's
mm,
like it's an exhale that they can't do anywhere else
yeah,
or they haven't been able to find anywhere else thus far. Thus far.
mm, mm,
And that's a really beautiful thing to play a part in giving to people,
mm,
you know.
mm,
And so, but it's that love. It's
yeah,
that, it's that, it's just complete love because I love to sing and play with melody and the piano is, you know, an instrument since I played since I was 6 years old.
mm,
So for me, there's actually a conversation happening between me and the instrument
mm,
and the mantra and the instrument and the sounds and the strings and the piano
mm,
and the keys. All of
mm,
that, there are many in betweens
yeah,
that are simultaneously happening
yeah,
in order to create the breadth of what people are receiving. And then
yeah,
there's the in between all of this and what people are receiving. And then there's
mm,
the in between themselves and actually their true selves.
yeah,
So there's so many in betweens. And I think that's the power of music.
yeah,
Is music actually music is that it's like melodic potion that allows you to access those spaces in between.
mm,
That's why they say music is universal. Well, what is the universe?
mm,
It's everything in between.
mm,
That's what the universe is.
yeah,
And that's why music is universal
yeah.
because
And I,
it's bridges,
yeah,
bridges, bridges.
yeah. And I think I love what you said about love, because I I feel that when we maybe go on this, it's something that if you study the books and you speak with teachers, that we can we can have many pieces of knowledge brought into our lives. But when you are with people who are, and okay, I'm going to use the word aligned, but I feel that it's more of a multiplicity than aligned. When you were talking about the piano and all the different expressions of the divine that are in the room, all those individualized, your childhood, everything is coming into a moment. This is why the love is traversing something, and it is an entanglement of a symphony. And having fallen occasionally into the trap of, if I read these books and I connect with this Sanskrit and I break these words down, and then I forget to just love and remember the humility that I really don't know. And it's inexpressible, some of the things that happen. Then, what was I doing it for? What am I doing it for? And that is what I feel is consistent in you. And you expressed it yourself just there by the fact that you are diligent. You're questioning about the human things that come up, and you're taking that awareness and lovingly guiding yourself in the actions you make. And if you were not lovingly guiding yourself, but just kind of say, well, no, I must do the yamas and niyamas before I, then then that resonance wouldn't be as sweet, because people feel the love. That's the tangible part of the equation that gels it or brings it all together. So I'm really glad that you said that. And I would like to, and I think you may have already answered this question, but to put it into context, I spent a lot of time on the audio app Clubhouse, and I know that there are inconsistencies inside of myself. And I know that you talked about play, and I can sense you're a very playful, fun person. And Leela is quite often, forgotten about as part of, the joy of the joy of being here. However, I do want to speak to, or I wonder if you could speak to the strength, where you would say that comes from in this life's journey, where your strength comes from in maybe your lineage and your history, and how have you ever thought of yourself as consistent, but maybe how that strength brings that consistency into being.
The word consistent. I don't think anybody, if we're really honest, I think robots are consistent. I don't know if any human being is really that consistent. Maybe in this state it might be hard to be consistent. If you're living in a village out rural somewhere, you're probably more consistent than I am. I mean, I think consistency there's consistency in action.
Yeah.
But then there's consistency of awareness. With the lives that we live now, I think consistency of action is very challenging. And I admire people who can do that. But what I would say is my consistency of awareness is probably more I think that is something that has been cultivated probably for the last 20 years of my life.
Yeah.
Um, you know, being brought up in an Indian family, and in Britain, obviously in the UK, I was brought up in Britain. I was born there in London. But
Yeah.
I had a very beautiful opportunity to grow up in a British culture and yet have a family from East Africa and India, right?
Mm.
East African Indians.
Yeah.
And no matter what I've been through in my life, it is the not only connection, but again, reverence
Mm.
to that which has come before me is what gives me
Mm.
strength. You know,
Mm.
in Indian culture, we very much, we bow.
Mm.
We bow without even thinking. You know, we pranams, we put our hands together and we bow
Mm.
to our elders, to our parents. We, on New Year's Day, we get down and we touch their feet.
Mm.
That state, bringing your head lower than your heart, literally, that's the function of that position when you bow,
Yeah.
as you know,
Mm.
is to bring the head lower than the heart, is a sign of extreme humility.
Mm.
And when you can put yourself in that position and you're in that state of humility, and that I will receive whatever blessings you have to give me, then the entirety of creation and knowledge is going to be available to you
Mm.
because you've literally bowed.
Mm.
That is strength.
Mm. Yeah.
That is strength. So
Mm.
giving to honor your ancestors, honor your elders, honor the ones who deliver wisdom, honor certain traditions, lineage, the fact that these principles have come into your life and that you are intertwined with them through the very
Mm.
fabric of your existence,
Mm.
to me, that gives me incredible strength because I'm part of something. I feel
Mm.
connected to something that is thousands of years old,
Yeah.
deeply, even if I don't know, some of the technicals about it. And if you ask me to speak on particular things, I'll say, I could not articulate that to you.
Mm.
But this is where devotion, which is a huge part of mantra practice, yoga practice,
Mm.
astrology, even yoga is devotion,
Yeah.
right? Mantra is devotion because you're committing, you're loving, in order for you to be committed, you must love.
Mm.
You wouldn't be committed to something you don't love, right?
Yeah. For sure.
And how do you become committed to something and express your love? You become devoted to it,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And it's that I feel has given me strength, that reverence and devotion to things. I've been
Mm.
in, even if I've been to other cultures, I've experienced things from other cultures. When I meet someone who is clearly established in themselves, who carries
Mm.
that wisdom, I have no problem in bowing my head.
Yeah.
Because why should it just be to traditions that I'm connected to? There's
Mm.
wisdom in all traditions, there's wisdom in many teachings.
Yeah.
So for me, that respect of what has been and what will continue to be, demands with love my
Mm.
respect.
Yeah.
And it's that I feel that devotion gives us incredible strength.
Yeah.
Because when I have been entirely devoted, it doesn't matter what is going on. The outcome doesn't matter, right? It's
Yeah.
that state of being. It's like things could be falling down around you. And if you have that love and you have that devotion and you say, I thank you. This is all for my evolution. Thank you for giving me this difficulty. Thank you for throwing the world at me. Thank you for ripping everything apart. Thank you for giving me exhilarating experiences. Just thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, and because you know that these things are transient,
Mm.
but what is giving you those experiences is not.
Mm. Yeah.
So acknowledge that.
Mm.
And that keeps me tethered. And that gives me strength.
Yeah. That was beautifully put. And I'm really, I'm just enjoying that for a moment. I think that that was a beautiful explanation of what I'm feeling from which I put in such a perfunctory word, and what you have made real poetry. And yeah, that really was a beautiful drop wisdom. With the, I feel similarly to you with regards to many lineages of wisdoms that regard um, that we should regard with respect and reverence. And um, with that, how do you feel about those who may not have had that touchstone? Um, you've spent time, you grew up in Britain, so you understand that there is, for many people here, a detachment to where they may think that they've come from, who their families are, um, separation and division of families. And I'm sure being in LA, you see that. How, this is interesting about how to phrase this. Do you see us as a global consciousness that we are beginning to recognize this? Because I know that you're not a person to sit here and say this is right and this is wrong. So I guess what I'm asking is, in the greater movement of this cycle, in this yuga, as it were, do you think part of that is this turning point where we're beginning to first recognize the reverence in nature, and now we're going to begin to recognize the reverence in bringing the family back in closer, bringing that connection to generations into a closer proximity, both physically and emotionally? Do you feel that that cycle turning, um, in amidst the pain and the Shiva activity that's maybe going on at the moment, you feel that there is some kind of rumbling of, do you see that?
Of
What
like
you
a coming back to more familial
mm,
existences and connections between people. You
yeah,
know, we don't know what it's going to look like.
yeah,
And we
mm,
only think we know most of the time based on what we have seen already.
mm,
We don't necessarily know as human beings what is possible in
mm,
terms of what the picture will actually look like.
yeah,
But what I do see happening, what I've observed happening, especially in the last 7 years, 7 years
mm,
in particular,
mm,
there is something waking up in people that is pulling them to understand themselves deeper
mm,
and the whole cohesive nature of what it means to be on this planet.
mm,
Now, some people are accelerating and going, well, I want to know what's out there and I want to know what's on that planet and this is solar system and all that kind of stuff. To be honest, I'm not, I'm not, I wouldn't say that with the time that I have, I'm entertained with all of that because my purpose is to focus on what to do here
yeah,
because the earth is actually our body. In
yeah,
astrology, we look at it, the ascendant is earth, our
mm,
body. It's who we are. So my concern is here,
mm,
right now in this lifetime. I do feel that because of previous incarnations, we have connections to people halfway across the planet who may have been members of our family.
mm,
And
mm,
so our families and our clusters and those who we are assigned for our soul's evolution may not be the ones that we're born into.
mm,
Who am I to say that it's supposed to be that way? But
yeah,
I do feel like, though, whatever that looks like, any traditions on this earth and any wisdom on this earth and teachings on this earth that help us remember our place on this planet, what it means to operate at full function and our full human capacity for the benefit of ourselves and this planet. Those teachings, they have a life of their own. They're breathing. And now everyone wants to share oxygen with them. And so I feel like that is going to be what begins to permeate people. And as that permeates people, people will understand that having a family, having a village, living in places where we actually care daily, not just when something goes wrong, but we're there and we have communities, is paramount to our survival. And I don't mean just our physical survival. Physically, we can survive. We can survive anywhere on our own. Mentally and emotional, we cannot survive without community. We cannot survive without a family of some sort. And we cannot hope to cultivate the best in our youth if we don't provide that for them. We must provide that for them. It's really, really important. But whether that looks like it's our blood relatives or not, for some, that will be the case. And
mm,
for others, that may not be the case, you know.
mm,
but the energy of family. It's that energy, and not just the energy, it's the actual actions that are carried out that are of a familial nature. That I feel is what people are going to be seeking more. They are seeking that more. You know, you hear all these things about my tribe and my this and my that, my this. That to me is the first stage, but it's not enough, because tribes can also fall into a tribal mentality, which is probably not a very healthy aspect of that, right? But tribe in terms of no matter what you do, I've got you. There is no good and bad. There's no judgment, but we are on this journey together. That aspect, I think, is a beautiful, beautiful thing that people are beginning to be drawn to and want to find. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's beautifully put. I actually feel quite emotional because I have 4 children and they range from 24 to 7. And um, yeah, and I really like the wisdom that you added on the end of um, that it's more of an evolutionary tribe rather than a utopian, immediate, euphoric tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And and I'm sure that you would agree that this only happens with time because, as you put it, those wisdoms are going to come when they're going to come. Um, and I know you know that. Um, so yeah, I think that's filled me with a recognition that um, that hope is really just evolution in progress, and um, that there is a lot to look forward to for the generations to come.
Of course
So
there
I
is. Of
guess
course there is.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
and I know that with all the healing that you've done post pandemic and all the healing that you are doing with the mental health and the isolation that some people will have felt and the what has been woven during that time that will maybe come up later. Um, it makes me very happy that you are here to kind of be one of those people that is supporting that. And I guess my final question, as I do not want this conversation to end.
We can do a part two.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to zoom out now. And I am going to ask you about how music and mantra informs time for you.
How music and mantra informs time.
Yeah, so evolution is has mathematical laws that will not be rushed. And I, without asking you, I can sense that you are experientially aware of that. So I maybe jump into a conclusion, but I am just pondering how music and mantra, it is literally moving through the ether, through the air, informs um, your perception of time.
Mm. Mm. Well, it takes me out of it. Because the world that we live in operates on a concept that time is linear. But we know it's not. So the way to break concepts and not be trapped in this world and its modus operandi is mantra and music. I call mantra superfood for the mind because it really does free you of this time. It's one of the only things that gets me out of my head. Because as a human being, your head must subscribe in order to function in this world to time as linear. It must. From the moment we wake up, even when we're sleeping, we have an alarm when we go to sleep. We wake up at a certain time, which never made sense to me, by the way. Never made sense because it feels like, but in this human body, we must respect seasons, our relationship to our environment. Even certain traditions and practices are according to times on this planet. Even certain rags in classical music, you don't sing, even at certain times of the day. Generally, certain seasons, you don't do it because you actually mess with the energies and some strange things can happen. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Wow, that we'll save that for another conversation. It's fascinating.
So in terms of that, as a human being, I must, again, respect, be in the world, as I said. So my being in the world is being human. My being not of the world is mantra and music. That's what the mantra and music does. It allows me, it dissolves this construct. It dissolves this timeline for the time that I'm doing it. And so that's what happens. And especially when I'm singing Kali, because she's the goddess of time. She transcends the dark and the light. She transcends the good and the evil. Everyone thinks, right, Kali is the goddess of death. Everyone goes, oh, goddess of death. But actually, she's beyond that. She's really the goddess of time.
Because I seem to recall the story of Ganesha, and when Parvati calls Kali, she does bring everything from the dawn of time, doesn't she?
Yeah. And this is the thing that is very powerful. I can even feel it now. When you can go beyond what is happening with with what you're witnessing with your human eyes, and in this version of you, if you can stand back and understand that this is all a construct, the energy of Kali helps you understand that there is no judgment, there is no good and bad to this. There's no good and bad. Our understanding of time as human beings, we judge how that time was spent. We judge what was materialized in a period of time. You know, how's this year been for you? How's your summer? How's your day? I hope you had a good birthday. All these things are time, but they're very limited understandings of time because it's always assigned to a date or a number on a clock. And these things are very finite. They're actually very limited. So when you're experiencing yourself and you're listening to these sounds, or you're uttering these sounds and these syllables that are actually the sounds of the planets, and they're the sounds of creation, they're the sounds of nature, they're the sounds of the air, sounds of the sky, air, water, fire, all the elements. They don't adhere to our human construct of time. They are part of the vast nature of time, which is not a 365-day calendar that we have to live within. So when you're chanting mantra and you're listening to mantra, especially mantra music, which is the beginning of all sound, that is what it's helping you connect with. So as much as I can, it's like my cheat code. It's like my, everyone talks about going on a retreat, and they pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to go on a retreat. You can do that with 108 rounds of Japamala. You can do that. You can have a retreat right there and then. So I do retreats. Yes, I do retreats every day. Yeah. Imagine that, like doing a mini retreat every day. 108 rounds. That's your retreat. And it's funny because retreat means to get away. But actually I see retreat as going towards. Yeah. That's what mantra does. Music does.
Well, I'm not going to add anything to that because I know that will be something that many people will now think maybe I will sit in the corner for 10, 15 minutes and do exactly that. Have a bit of a retreat to myself. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming today. Wonderful questions answered. And
I actually do want to share with you, I actually am going to do, the sessions that I'm doing on Clubhouse that I was doing there and other things. I'm actually doing them personally for people now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how can people connect with you to have this moment with you?
So, yeah, thanks for asking. So they can just connect with me on Instagram or go to my website and look up the mantra healing there. And I will actually, so as I do with some of these general big sessions, I will actually go into your chart and what's going on for you. And it'll be a channeled music mantra guided session that will be specifically and intentionally given to you to support you at this time. So it's a much more personalized, refined experience. So yeah, you can get in touch with me through my website, radhikavekaria.com. Mm-hmm.
I'll put all the links to your website on there and a link to that.
Thank you.
I will say that for some people who don't know you, that your knowledge of the Jyotish, or what we would call the way that the universe works. So when Radhika is saying that she will read your chart, she has a very fundamental understanding of that. So I'm sure it will be a very wonderful experience, and one that I will be taking up. So yeah, that's amazing that you're offering that to people. So yeah, I thank you. And thanks for coming today. And while you were talking, I think you were talking about something that the heavens opened here, and I was like, this is really atmospheric. Radhika's talking, and it's pouring rain, and it's so poetic.
Oh, it's beautiful. Rain from the
Let's
skies is a blessing.
yeah, let's do a part 2. But thanks so much for coming, and I'll just stop recording now for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. 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 Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. 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 Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Shivaya Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah, Om Namah, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah, Om Namah, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya. Om Namah, Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.